Welcome to this week's Greenup Beacon Video News Magazine. I'm Hank Bond, along with the one and only, as we say here, the one and only, Tony Quillen. And today's magazine, we're doing it old style on the old Ustream producer, so we won't have any commercials, so I'm going to make Tony talk on and on and on. Known Tony a few years now, and you're running for state representative to replace Tanya Pullen, as is your Democratic counterpart, Lou Nichols. We had Lou on a couple of weeks ago, and we have you today. And so, as with Lou, and as I told you when we started, tell us about Tony Quillen to start with.
Well, I want to thank you first, and you probably got the right person, because it seems like if you can't do commercials, I'm probably the person that can just keep talking and talking. Like you said, we've known each other for a while. A little bit about Tony Quillen. Was raised in Greenup, Lloyd. Basically, I had dual citizenship. We lived in Lloyd, and Dad's business was in Greenup, so I spent a lot of time in Greenup. Growing up there, I graduated from Greenup County High School in 1982.
Just a pup, right?
Just a pup. Right. And basically, I was raised through that service station. I call myself that service station rat.
Right.
And so after that, Dad insisted that I was not going to follow in his footsteps, that there was too many hours of the day that he's put in, that he wanted us kids to go on to college. And so at that time, I've spent a couple of years up at ACC and then transferred on to Moorhead and got a BS in mathematics and a minor in physics. I've got a few hours in my master's, but I never did. Kids and all those other little things mess that up at times.
Trying to raise a family.
They're trying to raise a family. You gotta put food on the table. Have three great children. My oldest one's following in my footsteps as far as going to Moorhead. He's a
Go Eagles.
Yeah. That's Henry, and he's an excellent student. He was an excellent student graduated valedictorian down at Greenup County and does an excellent job out there. He's not really following in my footsteps as far as majors and stuff, though I sort of wanted him in the science technical field. He's decided I think he's going to be a lawyer. So I have another, the next one is Alexandra. We call her Alex down here. She's a senior at Greenup County High School, and I reckon I'm one of these proud dads. If everything goes okay for the next 3 or 4 months, she's going to graduate valedictorian. She does a great job. She's got a great political mind on her. And she's sort of like her dad. She gives her opinions, maybe sometime a little too often. And then my baby is up here at Wortland Middle School right now. She's in the 8th grade.
And I'm sure she enjoys being called your baby.
Yes, and she's informed everybody. I always tell, I'm the baby of my family. I have an older brother, Tim, that works at Stultz Pharmacy, and then a sister that works down Susan down at the Southern Ohio Medical Center. But yes, Abby Jo loves to play that baby card, and she's done great. She just got back from Florida. She was on the varsity cheerleading squad that went down there, and so these kids are going in all different directions. So basically growing up like a service station. Dad's Joe Quillen, Mom's Juanita. Everybody sees Dad as far as the face of the family. Mom's sort of that transmission and rear end that keeps everything clicking along, and you hardly ever see her. But that's sort of the makeup of the family.
Sounds good to me. As we move on now, we'll talk a little politics. We do have a new Republican governor that took office. There are 4 seats open. I know that the governor would like all 4 of them to be Republican. You would like to be one of those Republicans. Lou would like to be one of those Democrats.
Absolutely.
So that's we all know each other. It's not like this is some big world where we don't run into each other at the grocery store kind of thing. So let's talk now about your plans if you get the office. What you see as the biggest issues here. I know as far as right to work, that is a big controversial issue. West Virginia and now Kentucky is trying to do some new things. Tell us how you feel and how you feel that legislation will go.
I'm one of those square pegs in a round hole type thing. I am that Union Republican. I've been that way. As far as commissioner for 18 years, Probably forgot. Should have mentioned that in the earlier part of it, shouldn't I? That I've
Right.
been commissioner.
You
for
have
8
been elected.
Yes, 5 general elections and 3 primaries. I've had a total of 8 elections over the last 17 or 18 years. But my record shows down there it matches Bobby Carpenter, it matches Mike Heineman's record as far as right to work, prevailing wage. So I am that little bit of a different
Kind of Republican.
different kind of Republican. I know what the what good paying jobs mean, and I'd like to try to attract businesses and stuff that really look forward and to working with unions and to expand that, because that's a big part. You know, have to have enough money. They have to be good paying jobs, and so that's one of the things that we really look at. But as far as right to work, I'm against it. You know, and prevailing wage, I'm for it. That's sort of one of those issues that I reckon should be off the table up here. I know a lot of the people from the local have called me and thanked me before in the past about my position on that. And they've had concerns this time. They said, Tony, now if we put you down as state representative, you're getting a little more pressure. And I said, no, you may think it's a little more pressure, but I said, in my first meeting with the governor, we had a frank discussion about a lot of issues, but he asked me point blank, what are we going to disagree on? And within a split second, basically I said, Governor, me and you differ on labor issues. I said, I'm not a right to work supporter, and I believe in the prevailing wage. And so
he knows where you stand.
He knows where I stand, and I think the article in the Ashland paper the other day, when he said, I'm not a cookie cutter of him. In fact, I sort of said, if I have to be a yes man, then there's no use in me going down there. You know,
right.
My dad thought, one thing he taught me at the service station was you better think for yourself.
Right.
And so
I agree with that. Let's talk now about my biggest crawl is education and funding. Mm-hmm. And I understand that, you know, we can debate all day on the fact that there may need to be financial cuts. Which he has proposed. The one thing most people don't know is just because he proposes them does not necessarily mean that they take place. And secondly, I need someone who, and I don't know how you feel about that, so I'm going to ask that first. Then I have a follow-up question to that. But he has proposed a 4.5% for the second half of this year, a 9% for next year. They're talking about keeping the SEEK formula in place, but reducing family resource centers, reducing preschool, reducing early education. What is your feeling about this, Tony?
Well, we'll start with the K through 12. And as you mentioned there in the SEEK funding, one of the things, the budget that he has submitted increases that approximately about $40 million for growth. And over the past couple of years, there has been no money included in that as far as growth. Obviously, there is going to be tough choices. Education, as I just mentioned, Dad works 16 hours a day to give us children an opportunity. So I believe in education. That's what's got me and my brother and my sister where we're at. You know, there's tough choices that we have to make, and we're going to have to go down there like we have in the county. You know, when we first started, Bobby Carpenter was a judge just right before me, and I came and I've been with him about 18 years. Our budget wasn't pretty then, but we had sat down. The key thing was we had sat down, we had to work together, and we had to prioritize and make the cuts where we thought we could, keep the things we needed. And education is one of those things that is very important to me. And we're going to have to look at some of the issues, what's working and what's not. And it's easy to say that everything's great and working. There is not an agency in Kentucky that tells you they get too little of money. So we're going to have to sit down and see what's working and what's not as far as in the education. That's K through 12. One of the things also I'd like to see in K through 12, and we won't get on it too much, but is discipline. I think our school administrators and our teachers, we need to whatever that may be to help them get discipline back in the school system, because I just feel that's one of the areas that we may have strayed from a little bit. Some old-fashioned discipline. I know some's for it, some's against it, but we need to do something to try to help the teachers as far as that. I reckon we want to go on up to higher education.
Yeah, you're going to close if the budget's enacted as he has asked. Kentucky State will likely close. The marginal regional institutions are going to have to cut programs. You know, Senate Bill 1 addresses a whole lot of this.
Everything from the arts and how we define programs, where do we put the programs in at?
Right.
And so,
And I did see Senator Wilson on KT the other night. I won't say he's backed up any, but he's backed up a little bit.
yeah, and I think I don't know if as far as the education budget and the complete budget he's put forward is that's the best start. That's
Right.
his best start, and obviously, like you had mentioned earlier, it has two houses to go through, the representative and the Senate. So I'm sure there's going to be changes, adjustments that need to be made. And again, at the end of the day, as far as me, I reckon the question, Hank, a lot of times when I've been out and about, and you know me, seem like I campaign all the time anymore, is the one thing I've told myself, let's not forget why we built the schools and we hire the teachers. It's about the kids.
Right.
And we need
And that's my concern about the financial ramifications of the budget. We're just back to 2008 levels in funding. And part of that is because we have gone through a recession in this country. We can blame it on the president or not blame it on the president, but we have gone through a recession.
Right.
And so consequently, I know one of the critical areas in the funding is, of course, the pension plan for teachers. And whether that was a Republican's fault or a Democrat's fault, that should have never been allowed to happen.
I agree.
We can argue that for days. But
I don't think we're probably going to argue as far as that one, but that goes into, we'll go back to the universities,
Yes,
and higher education. The one thing, back to what Dad always told me, basically don't believe every number you see, and so basically I did a little research on the 9%. We keep hearing the 9% cut in higher education. Well, that's only 9% of the state funding to each of those colleges. And I'll give you an example here. This year, University of Kentucky, their budget's about $3.4 billion. But only 8% of that money comes from state funding. They have the hospital, they have the hospital and the sports program. In fact, University of Kentucky is one of the few sports programs in the country that gives back to the school. So 8% of that 9%, at the end of the day, that's less than 1% of a cut. And again, I realize nobody wants to deal with cuts, but let's be honest with our numbers when we look at those numbers. And at the end of that, of their total budget of the University of Kentucky. Now, I realize more of our regional colleges and university get a larger portion of that. So yes, we have to look at that, the funding for that. We may need to adjust the equation that.
Well, then it was a political mistake to throw out 9% without clarifying it. Yeah. Whether it's the governor or the Democrats, it was a mistake because, frankly, 9% of people do not know how the funding formula works.
Yeah, and I was like you until I started researching. You hear the 9% number, so then you start reading down in there, and it's of the state funding. So then you can start doing a little multiplying and stuff. And we're put into basically this position from what you've already said, the pension fund. We have tens of billions of dollars that we forgot to make our payment on. When I say we, I'm talking Frankfurt, the people of Kentucky.
Right.
We've got retirees, we have current employees that we've made promises to.
Right.
I've been in this situation before in county government, not on the pension part of it, but from the health care part of it, because during the 18 years, we had made commitments to our retirees, and our current, actually retirees get theirs through the county retirement system. Right. But our current employees, we supplied basically a family plan at that time, and we paid 80 and they paid 20.
Right.
Well, over this time period, health care just finally increased. So we had to make the decision to go a single plan, but we drew the line and said, everybody's hired, we're grandfathering you in, you can still, so new employees at least know what they're getting into. This is one of the things that definitely needs to happen there. We've made commitments to retirees. We've made commitments to the current employees, we need to keep that commitment to them and make sure they get the benefits that we've promised them. I think the governor has made a great attempt at that. He has promised about $1 billion in what he's calling an unsweepable account, basically, that piggy bank. When we're talking pensions, a lot of times, and I use a lot of service station because you learn a lot in a service station growing up in a small business, and it's sort of like the credit cards and stuff. We make things a lot of times a little more complicated than what they need to be. I remember Dad always said, just keep it simple. Let's get down to the basics and stuff. So you take your household credit card. If you keep charging and charging and charging and charging, then your bill's going to keep going on up. In the previous administrations, we've not even paid the interest on our pension plan. However, just like the credit card, when finally somebody says, hey, we have to stop, we have to get this thing under control, you can't get there overnight.
No.
We didn't get there in the first place overnight, so it's going to be a slow, gradual pull-out, and a whole lot like the county budget. Back when we started, we used to transfer, I used to say, or I still say, $30.98 from the pencil fund to transfer it over to buy some more gravel. But right now, through a gradual making decisions, what's our priorities, fiscal responsibility, working together. That's another thing, working together.
Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of that now, Tony.
No, I know it. And I'll
Sorry.
say, and I agree with you. The gentleman that helped me more to be a statesman, he used to like to call, Bobby's not here today, but Nelson Allen.
Oh, sure.
Nelson Allen, we sat down in 1998 together, and we became very close friends. Nelson gave me a lot of good advice. Nelson was one of those type of people you could disagree with, and I reckon it's sort of like Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. They could still go and have a cold one or something. When Nelson always used to tell me at the end of a court meeting, he'd slap me on the leg and say, come on, I'll buy you a cheeseburger and a Coke. Yeah. And, one of us won that day, one of us lost that day, right. But we could still go eat lunch together. Right. We probably need to start eating lunch a little more together.
I have to agree with that. I don't. The political picture today is not pretty for this country. At the national level, at the state level, it's
red meat politics.
You got it.
And
all right, let's move on here, Tony. I know that you have some issues that I see written down here, so I do want to talk about Judge Nichols talked about our court system now talks about the drug problem. Police officers, I talk to them pretty regularly. Obviously, you are for anything that will stop the drug problem. But
absolutely.
Address that just a little bit. One of the problems I believe we have, and I don't have the answers to a lot of things. I have a lot of times. That's what I've always told people. I'll just be up front now. I've made mistakes as commissioner, but I've tried and I've worked hard. And where I've made mistakes, we've tried to go back and we've corrected them as a court. So I don't have the answers to everything, but I'm smart enough to realize I don't have the answers. So we may need to seek other help. I know my brother, being a pharmacist and stuff, I go to him a lot of times for questions of this nature. But, to my understanding, sort of that Detroit, Charleston, Huntington, Huntington used to be such a nice place when we were growing up, and now it seems like they can't get a break.
Yeah, can't get a break.
Charleston's the same way. And it's a big pipeline.
And so then that pipeline comes right down through here on 64 and 23. Not been so long ago, it was a peel mill. I can remember us passing a county ordinance on peel mills, and I know the state a few years ago passed that peel mill bill that sort of eliminated most, if not all, of the peel mills. And that was basically illegal taking of what we would call prescription drugs.
Right.
Basically, people be breaking in your house to steal your painkiller or either steal your lawnmower to go buy it on the street. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that they've done right down there as far as that goes. But no different than anything else. When one thing moves out, something else comes in. And I know now a lot of that is we've got these harder drugs. We have heroin, things. again, I'm not familiar with all the drugs, and even if I was, I think some of them have sort of like letter and number designations because they're 23 letters long or something like that.
Right.
Hank. So,
Right. I will openly tell you, I've never ingested an illegal substance.
Right.
Not in college, not as a kid. I never did it. So it's impossible for me to understand why people do this.
You know, I talked to, like I said, Tim is a pharmacist, and I talked to him, it may have been 15 years ago or so. I'm one of these people that, if it says take one every 8 hours, the way my body metabolism is, that's really not enough. So usually I can take a 1.5 or 2 tablets, and I get obviously Tim's advice on that, and through the doctor.
Right.
But I said, Tim, I don't understand how people can get addicted. Here I could take a horse's dose,
right,
and basically it doesn't affect me. And he says each person has different metabolic rate, and the way they're made up, they could take a drug one time and it may be addictive to them.
Right.
So, so that's one of the things there. Some of the things we need to concentrate on still is we need to make sure our local communities has the capacity and tools, and realize that costs some money. That's one of those priorities that we have to make a decision on. But we have a lot of addicts around here in Greenup and Boyd counties, northeastern Kentucky. So we need to make sure that our local communities has the necessary tools to combat this. Again, I'm not an expert on what that tool is. I'm sort of a Ross Perot type guy. If some other place has got a great program, let's not try and reinvent the wheel. If the wheel's already been made, then let's maybe look in some other states and and it may not be other state. It may be in Lexington. It may be in a Monroe County. So let's look for some answers there. Dealers and traffickers. I know there's a bill introduced. These dealers and traffickers that are coming down from Detroit through here, Charleston, Huntington, through this area on up 23, they're scum. They're thugs. They're killers. That's what people don't realize. These people are killers. Now, they're killing us at maybe a slow death, but at the end, if you're dead, you're dead.
Right.
There's only one place for them, Hank. That's not in the jail. It's underneath the jail.
You're not going to get much argument out of me.
And so that's some of the
Tell us how you really feel, Tony.
Well,
but I do understand. I do not disagree.
I put it mildly since we have it here, but under the jail, I had a few more comments on it. But
well, I don't think I think if people get introduced to it in an illegal way, such as, that's the wrong word, but if you go to a party and somebody gives you something, I'm not nearly as hard on those people as I am on the people that give it to you.
Right.
I'm not saying that you should continue on with the habit, but there are circumstances.
Yeah.
And I think that the courts in this state have sort of begun to address it and realize they can't let it go.
Right.
The people that sell this and pass it around, they need to go to jail or something.
Yep. There's always been, as you're well familiar with it, our jail problems throughout the county. We have huge budgeting problems. So we always try to work something up with the state, whether it's bracelets, early. But like you said, we're going to have to start addressing that and saying it is what it is. And if we don't pay for it now, we're going to be paying for it later.
Well, we won't be able to pay for
it.
It'll destroy us. Okay, we'll move on to your other points. Before we move on, I want to mention that we have a young gentleman every week who lives over in Peebles by the name of Jordan Ryan, a really nice, special kind of guy, and he asks us each week to say hello to him. So Tony and I are here to say hi to you, Jordan.
Hi, Jordan. Glad you could join us. And as I understand it, you're always joining Hank.
That's right. He
couldn't watch a better show.
That's right, particularly the Hank Montoni Quillen.
That's right. Maybe we need to take this on the road.
We could do it. Okay, I'm looking at your notes here. We've talked about the pension and education and higher ed, and let's move over there in Utah.
The important thing. Jobs, jobs, and jobs.
I agree with
Jobs is one of these things that cure a lot of these other problems, like drugs. If they have the opportunity to go to work, I believe that's part of the problem here is they're not working, they're at home, they're whatever that case may be. If you're out working, you're a lot less likely to get in trouble and do the things you're not supposed to be doing.
I used to work for a fella, and his logic was this: if you have too much spare time, you have too much time to get in trouble.
Dad's philosophy pretty much, back in my younger days, we've all had
Sure.
Back in the,
yes.
I was probably about 17, 18 years old, and I had laid out very late, very, very late that night, and I was coming in about that time. I thought, I better just stay up here at Dad's station, and Mom and Dad will be mad at me, so I sort of made me a bed out of inner tubes to sort of sleep there, and I thought, now I'll beat Dad out of here before he gets here, and I'll slip on home, and that way Mom won't be as tough on me.
Right.
Well, I overslept just a little bit. About the time I was leaving,
He came in.
He was coming in, and I was walking to my car, and he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Go home, get some bed, and get some sleep." And he said, "You're staying up here, and you're going to work all day." And so he made me work all day up there. So that sort of takes the life out of you, like you were sort of mentioning.
That treats you.
Yeah, you sort of appreciate that.
So we have AK Steel, we have the railroad. I mean, there's so much less here.
Yeah, hopefully I know Rand Paul is still working. Obviously, we got this tariff issue through the Chinese dumping, and even after we placed, I don't know the exact number, $20-some worth of tariff on each ton of steel. It's my understanding China's sort of getting around that by using another country to ship it to bring it in here. So I know Rand Paul is still working on that. So hopefully we'll get some good news. We've heard a little bit, but I don't have anything official. And so
you just work here, right?
Yeah. Regulations, obviously irresponsible regulations, has hurt, has killed economic growth, and it kills jobs. I'm not completely against all regulations. I don't want to say, I realize that we have to protect our environment, we have to protect our workers and stuff, but I believe we went a little bit too far. We need common sense regulations.
Right.
And that helps us, at the end of the day, keep that money here, spurn more jobs, and keep going forward. Tax code. Hank, you've heard it ever since you've been probably a kid and stuff. Kentucky's tax code is outdated, every legislative session we have heard that. So one of the things I think we need to do is actually do something about it. If everybody's in agreement that something needs to be done,
then we need to do something.
We need to do something. It sounds to me like both sides have agreed that we need to do something. We need to make it business friendly. As much as I am a union Republican, I also understand it takes companies and industries to hire us. So we need to make it business friendly. We need to make it competitive, so we can be competitive in the United States as far as jobs. We've already touched about my position as far as union, right to work, prevailing wage. So just to let the people know that again. But the one thing is, Hank, I've not seen a politician yet. I hate the word politician. I call myself a public servant, and maybe you've heard me tell this joke before. I tell people I'm a public servant, not a politician. And they say, "What's the difference?" I said, "Well, that's easy. A politician will lie to you. I just handle the truth very recklessly." And so I'm a public servant. But one of the things that every politician talks about, public servant, is jobs. When they run, everybody says jobs.
How can you go wrong with that?
But how can you go wrong? But the problem is, what plans do I have? I've got a plan. I don't know if it's a foolproof plan, if it's even going to work, but at least I'm willing to put it forth and let people take the shots at it. Our energy sector. We have our energy sector touches every part of our economy. Energy sectors, when you get energy sector jobs, those are good paying jobs. When we go through the good paying jobs and stuff, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is not only if we get those jobs, when we get those jobs, it's talking about a welder, a laborer, a pipe fitter, an accountant, an engineer.
Right.
So it actually hits all of our sectors. We're blessed here in Kentucky. Natural resources. We've got coal, we've got oil, we've got gas, and we have hydro. We've got this river that goes, plus we have other lakes down there as far as Barkley Lake and other lakes here that will help us on the hydroelectric.
Right.
So one of the things, my suggestion is, as far as that, is let's do some corporate partnerships to look into better ways to get this energy, to develop this energy, to transport this energy, to transform this energy. That'll help our colleges, that'll help our jobs, that'll help our economy from the standpoint when we're working and we've got good paying jobs. The reason we're partly in this pension mess and all the other financial messes we're in here is, but you'd mentioned it, the economy's dipped and that means less tax money. More people you get working, that means more people are putting in the pot, and that goes a long way to help our problems. Besides corporate partnerships, we have incentives that we can offer businesses. If you're wanting to relocate here, you're wanting to start a new business here, let's get with you. I can remember back, and I was only, I'm telling my age, 19. I'm a 1964 model.
Right.
But when Martha Lane was here, I can remember people when she was trying to attract Toyota here, as you probably remember.
I was the publisher of the paper in Georgetown.
Okay, so you were right there.
Oh,
so
yes,
wherever I mess up here, Hank,
Yeah.
you can jump in here and you won't hurt my
There were
feelings a bit.
people wanting to turn peach for a $364 million tax credit. They've now built $1 billion plant. They employ 14,000 people, not counting spinoff jobs.
Right, and so that's where I was going with it. They was basically ready to hang her in the rotunda.
Oh, you have
why is she wasting our jet fuel
Right.
to drive over there? And today we see what that investment has brought to Kentucky. We need to make those type of investments to the energy sector. And again, the reason I focus on the energy sector, for 24 years of my working career, I was over at, depending on what you want to call it, some people call it the atomic plant, the uranium enrichment facility. I was a nuclear scientist specializing in non-destructive assay. And so in these last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to go to EN Engineering, which is out of Catlettsburg here, and they deal more with the petroleum, oil, transfers, and pipelines, things of that nature, through Marathon and other companies.
Right.
So, with all of that there, we have one thing here that most communities don't have. We have an industrial park that's connected to this riverport. And we may have already mentioned this, but if we did, well, I'm going to mention it again.
I don't think so.
Because it's jobs.
Right.
And I've told the governor when he come up here to visit with us a couple of weeks ago, Governor, we have an industrial park that's connected to a riverport, that we have a community college, technical college, right inside that industrial park that is willing to adjust and tailor their curriculum to whatever needs
to be.
Dr.
Atkins is all about that.
And that's I think our community and technical colleges is one of our biggest assets that is underused. It's remarkable the things they can do. And that's worked before in the past from I believe it's called like process technology. Marathon had worked with the community and technical college, and that's been a great program not only for Marathon, but I know over at the plant, when I was over at the atomic plant, they grabbed workers from there. Those really give them a great training and job specific training.
Right.
Everybody doesn't need to maybe take European literature. There's some people that just decide I would like to do this, and we need to concentrate on getting them the job skills.
Vocational proactive.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that.
And so
I think basic skills are basic skills. Everyone should be able to balance checkbook, and everyone should be able to tell time and make change for $1. We joke about that, but I have seen many examples. If you give them the 29 cents, they can't.
Oh, right.
They can't round it down or up.
The other thing that we've had out here most recently, I think back in probably about November, December, we got our certification for a work-ready community.
Right.
And so with all those things, with obviously the highways that we have also here. I told the governor, if I'm down there, Governor, I'm going to be sitting on your desk, and when somebody comes and knocks on your door and says, we want to build here, we want to relocate here, we want to expand here, I'm going to jump them in the truck and say, let's go to Greenup County, because our industrial park has the infrastructure in the ground waiting on them.
We have more here than I would say 90% of the counties in Kentucky.
Yeah.
We have river, we have rail, which both, we could accelerate rail if there were a call for it. Mm-hmm. We can go right back to work here. I'm not so sure about Armco. Well, it's not Armco.
Armco, yeah.
Armco.
I used to, a lady used to live up beside me, Miss Brown, and she always called it Armico.
Well, I think a lot of people did. And it's like Judge Nichols said, he worked there as a kid. A lot of people raised their families at Armco, Ashland Oil. And they've all been hostily bought out or moved away. But we have roads, we have rail, we have an airport that'll handle small jets in this county.
Right.
We're 25 minutes away from an airport that gives you access to the world.
Right.
I don't know how we can go wrong here.
I think a part of it is we have a public relations problem. Seems like up here a lot of times we want to talk about all the bad things instead of all the good things. A positive thing here just a week or two ago that right up in your neck of the woods. Russell, again, 98th percentile in the state.
Ninth high school in the state. And people also, we're the home of Jesse Stewart's home place. We have a state park here. We have a lake here. It's almost indescribable what we do have.
And basically,
and I don't talk a lot about South Shore because growing up in Russell in my day, that was a third world country. It was so far away. And everything came, you went to McHale there. It was not the same. But I do see that we have a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and we're basically an hour and a half, 2 hours away from several major cities. Columbus, Cincinnati, right down to AA, down in 64. We've got Lexington. We've mentioned Charleston. You probably need to pick what part of Charleston you're going to these days and stuff.
True. But there is a Cabela's there.
Right.
Right.
So we have opportunities there, and stop and think about it. You mentioned South Shore. Start down there at the Jesse Stewart Bridge, all the way down there in South Portsmouth,
right,
and count the number of bridges going across here.
Yeah. I think we have a world record on that.
Yeah, you take this 50 mile, 60 mile, whatever stretch of Ohio River. I don't know that Louisville's got that many.
We got 3 in Huntington. You've got the Ashland Bridge. You've got the Russell Bridge, the new Russell Bridge coming. You got.
I said the Jesse Stewart. I meant Carl Perkins.
Right. And then you've got Jesse Stewart and 2 at Portsmouth.
Right.
All in Greenup County.
Right. And if you want to go just a little bit farther, I believe is it Proctorville that's got that bridge there?
Another one there too.
So you take all of that in a 50, 60, 70 mile stretch. Like I said, I think we compete with Louisville on the opportunities.
It opens up the access.
And the other thing about Kentucky too is, depending on where you're standing at in Kentucky, it's argued that if you're basically somewhere more around the Lexington, we're about 50% of the total population in the United States. Now, if you move up here, then that we can get within about 500 miles of that's what I meant to say of the population, of about 60% of the population. Because
we are 8 hours from 65% of the population in the country.
So that's like you had mentioned with the roads, the highways, the rail, the water.
We have it all. You have Industrial Parkway takes you straight, not even a stop sign between here and 64. Plus you can cross to 52 and it's 4-lane clear to Huntington. It's an amazing area, really. And we've never had great success here.
Right. It's, it seems like I know there've been a couple, since I've been commissioner, there've been a couple of opportunities we have. The most recent one being down there in the Siloam Bottoms down at the South Shore area on a coke plant. Mm-hmm. Well, we know what uses coke, and that's steel mills. Mm-hmm. And I think, I know they were looking for contracts from AK Steel, but we know what's happened to AK Steel. So it seems like when we need that break, we had another opportunity back in 2007, 2008. Well, that's when the recession hit us. We had that opportunity out here on the industrial, in the industrial park. So we got to keep scratching and clawing, and that's what I told the governor. You know, if they're not too good to get in my old truck, we're going to bring them here to Greenup County.
I hear you.
And I know once I bring them here, the judge is County Judge Bobby Carpenter. He's always working hard, staying on top.
He'd buy him a cheeseburger and a Coke.
He'd buy him a cheeseburger and a Coke because Nelson Allen.
I got you.
Yep.
I got you. Tony, I want to thank you for joining us today. I wish you good luck. I tell you the same thing I told Lou. If it's what you want, I hope you get it.
Well, I surely appreciate that. And at times I think I've told people, I wish I'd listened to my dad. Maybe he, at 89 years old, he said, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah, I
reckon we've answered that question.
Yeah, I heard that. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Hank.
All right. Thanks for joining us here on the Greenup Beacon Video News Magazine.